Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Epic Wednesdays. This is a comic book event that Michael K. Vaughan started on his channel, and I horned my way in, where he's going through Marvel's Epic collections, their paperback full-color reprint line, one volume at a time. And I horned my way in and asked if we could do it together. We're both diehard comic book fans going way back. So now we are a world's finest collaboration on Epic Wednesdays. And the neat thing about the Epic collections is that, as I've mentioned before in these videos, is that they are not just a straightforward chronology, like the Marvel Masterworks series, which is ongoing. The Epic collections can bounce around. They can be anywhere in the run of any different book or character, depending on either what the editorial team wants to reprint or, far more likely, what the corporate masters of the editorial team want them to reprint. Do we have any funny books about this Ant-Man person? We got a multi-million-dollar movie coming out. Put out a book. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. The fact that the Epic collections don't progress in strict chronological order means they can serve that purpose if somebody wants them to. And our Epic collection today is a perfect example of that, not only in its choice, it is a pretty rotten period for the character involved, but also for its title and cover. It's Enter the Coming of the Falcon, a Captain America Epic collection. And some of you who know Sam Wilson, the Falcon from the movies, will be looking at this cover and saying, okay, well, where's the Falcon? And who's that guy holding Red Wing? That is the Falcon. That is Sam Wilson, who could not fly in any way when he was first introduced 50 years ago in Captain America. Where to start with this volume? I know that a lot of you bloodthirsty marmosets out there love it when Michael and I disagree. And we're going to disagree on this, I'll leave a link to his video down below. At one point in this Epic collection are the few issues of Captain America that were drawn by a man named Jim Steranko. And I don't know what kind of drug is in the municipal water supply, but comics fans think the Jim Steranko issues of Captain America are just the greatest thing since sliced cheese. They aren't. They stink. They really stink. And yet, if I had a dime for every time I've heard a comic book fan say what Michael K. Vaughan says in his video about this Epic collection, which is to look at a spread of Jim Steranko's artwork and say, that's art, man, I would have a lot of dimes. This Epic collection starts off with Jack Kirby sort of phoning in his last few panels on Captain America. Then it moves to Jim Steranko, who was brought on and did all these kinds of weird 70s Art Deco, poor man Salvador Dali page designs about Captain America. It's about as fitting an art style for this book as I believe the phrase is lipstick on a pig. It's dumb. Really, really dumb. But it's not just Jim Steranko's artwork that's really dumb. It's also a large chunk of the issues in this volume, which are all about necrophilia. There's a large chunk of Captain America at this era in his history that's about necrophilia. It's about a grown man who has been through World War II, absolutely unable to process the death of one comrade, Bucky, his teenage sidekick, to the point where there were many sarcastic readers, including one who got a letter printed in one of these issues from small-town Iowa, writing in saying, it sure does look like Captain America's attachment to his teenage sidekick Bucky, whose death he cannot get over, isn't just personal. It sure does look like there's another element involved. That wasn't being a provocateur on anybody's part. It really does look that way. It's weird. It's downright weird. Why is this character constantly mourning one fallen comrade from 30 years ago? Why can't Captain America get over the fact that Bucky died? He's gotten over many, many deaths, but he can't do it. To the point where he actually enlists Marvel's stand-in teenage sidekick, Rick Jones, who's a singer. He doesn't have any athletic ability. He's never had any athletic ability. Picture Wilson in a Bucky costume, if you can still your laughter. It's a ridiculous idea. But for many issues in this run in Captain America, the writer just decides to... I don't think the writer at this time was Stan Lee. I really don't. I think it was Steve Gerber, but I could be wrong about that. Either way, the stories have Rick Jones putting on Bucky's costume from World War II and having adventures alongside Captain America, who's the pinnacle of human perfection, has razor-sharp reflexes, years and years of combat experience, and an indestructible shield. Talk about irresponsible. You couldn't get any worse unless you were a trained gymnast, acrobat, boxer, and detective who took along on your dangerous crime-fighting sprees a small boy. Oh. Well, we're not talking about Batman in this case. We're talking not only about Captain America, we're talking about a weirdly fixated Captain America. It doesn't make any sense at all. And the writer just goes back to it over and over again. You have Jim Steranko in here with his weird anatomy. If you look at Michael K. Vaughan's video, you'll see he shows you a bunch of panels of just the guy's weird drawing. He had a much greater pinnacle of fame with Nick Fury and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. was peak Steranko for Marvel. But even in his Captain America volumes, there's one panel, you can see it in Michael's video, that shows Captain America and Rick Jones as Bucky sort of leaping into action. And Captain America's right leg is the whole length of Bucky's body. I myself thought at the time that it would add a very poignant element to this character, that he really misses this teenage sidekick, but that he gets on with life. In the same way that thanks to Superman having super recall, he can remember Krypton, and he misses it, but he gets on with it. It adds a poignancy, but you don't dwell on it. You don't make it morbid. Little did I know, I used to say, when these issues were coming out, I used to say the foremost rule of Marvel Comics is that nobody is dead except for Uncle Ben and Bucky. They're the only two characters who've ever died. And Uncle Ben is still dead, but Bucky is not dead anymore. Not only was Bucky brought back, I think Ed Brubaker is the one who finally committed the sacrilege of bringing Bucky back, but he's also become a fan favorite character, Winter Soldier. So he's not only back alive, he's never going to be dead again. He has died a couple of times, including in Fear Itself, which was a terrific moment that should have stayed true, but that's comic book in the weedery for another time. Jim Steranko was on here for a while. He was brutal with his deadlines. All that pretentious twaddle that he did on the page took him a long time. So he was no more fit for monthly comic book assignments than Barry Windsor Smith was. And eventually, other artists got called in. John Romita Sr., for instance, who could bang out a 15-page comic in 4 days. Not Jack Kirby speed, not George Perez speed, but still mighty fast. And John Buscema's brought in for a couple of issues. Would have been a great Captain America artist, except it's exactly the kind of thing he didn't like to do. The hallmark, as Michael points out in his video, the hallmark of Captain America comics, at least at this time and for most of Captain America's history, not anymore, but the hallmark was blasting action. This is where you go if you want incredible action in every issue, or you're guaranteed to get that. This is where you go. You go to Captain America for that. And that trail was blazed by Jack Kirby. Nobody can do action sequences better than Kirby. A lot of other artists have tried to do that. A lot of them have done a really good job. Buscema hated that kind of thing. He was much more for world building. If Marvel Comics had got the right to do an ongoing comic about Lord of the Rings, he would have been the one to get to do it. But Captain America, no. And John Romita Sr., the same way. Not really. His Captain America is just too fake looking. And then the comic hit on Gene Colan, an artist named Gene Colan, who's going to crop up a lot in Epic Wednesdays because he's all over the Epic collections. And he does a lot better work than we see at the very end of this issue. So another reason why he's terrific. He's a terrific artist. He's not particularly good. I don't think he's particularly suited for either Captain America or Daredevil, even though he had lauded runs on both. I don't think he's particularly suited to straightforward action comics. And fortunately, Marvel gave him the perfect kind of thing for what he is suited for, and he ran with it for issue after issue after issue. We will get to Count Dracula in time, I feel certain. In these early issues at the end of this, Gene Colan only appears at the end of this volume, and you really can't get a feel for how good he is. You get a feel right away, as Michael points out, for how different he is. All of his people look like people, and they don't look like each other. His layout work is amazing. it's such a before and after. Michael doesn't put it this way because he's a brainwashed fan, but Steranko is all about the layouts, and his layouts are awful. Gene Colan is also all about the layouts, and his layouts are fantastic, and they're in the same volume. So how that didn't wake Michael up, I have no idea. but the fact, you might have noticed the fact that I said Gene Colan, and therefore the Falcon, who Gene Colan introduced, are only in the very end of this anthology, which is a long anthology, and that is true, and that is the reason why I sometimes bemoan the fact that Epic Collections can bounce all over a chronology. Because this thing came out in 2016, a couple of years after the Falcon was introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when the powers that be at Marvel Comics, the powers that be at the studio, knew they were going to make a lot more use out of this guy. He was going to show up in Avengers movies, he was going to get a show of his own, or maybe a movie of his own. And so I believe there was a phone call or a negligent text somewhere in the bowels of Marvel Comics saying, hey, got any of those funny books about this Falcon guy? Put them in there. And so it happened. And so you have this anthology, which I'm not against them having this anthology, but if you're going to make these issues in an Epic collection, I might not like the guy, but you put Steranko on the cover. Okay, and you call it something like the Hulk or Bucky or something like that. You don't even mention the Falcon. This anthology isn't about the Falcon, except for a couple of issues at the very end. This is just false advertising. Or you either do that, or you make an Epic collection, which I believe Marvel has done, that shows the heyday of the Falcon, where it would be legitimate, where he's in every issue. Captain America, the Falcon was such a hit with fans who wanted to see a black character that done really well, a black character who's not a sidekick. He was such a hit with fans that Captain America's book transformed for a long time into Captain America and the Falcon. That was the title of the thing. Falcon was in every issue. He got a great costume redesign. You want a boring, murky, bad costume, let Gene Colan design it. You want a really great costume, let John Romita Sr. design it. He did redesign the character. And the character also got jet-powered wings. Sort of like the version of what you would see in the movies. They were kind of red feathered wings that were Stark technology that would allow Sam Wilson to fly. I myself don't understand why Marvel has rested on that. I really don't. I don't understand why in the 70s there wasn't a comic book. I can picture it in my head. A comic where the Falcon and Captain America are up against horrible odds, MODOK or Zemo or something like that, and they're battered, and maybe the Falcon is flying through an action scene and gets struck by an energy bolt. And he lands on the ground, and Captain America hunches over him and says, "Are you okay?" And the Falcon says, "Yeah, just give me a minute to clear my head." And then they leap back into action. Captain America slamming into some henchmen, the Falcon flying up to slam into someone on a balcony. And the issue comes to an end. They're the good guys. And the Falcon is looking at his jetpack and says, "I don't understand. That energy blast shorted this thing out. So how was I flying?" And then you just have it that the energy blast gave him the ability to fly. That happens many, many times. There's a Marvel character called the Blizzard who eventually incorporates the abilities of his technology. That happens all the time. I'm pretty sure that's even happened with the Spider-Man villain, the Shocker. Even if it's never happened before, there are a million different ways where you could simply give Sam Wilson the power to fly. That's not that much to ask. I don't like technology-dependent heroes. True, Marvel did eventually expand his relationship with his Falcon Redwing into a mutant ability to communicate with birds. That also is kind of paltry. I'd rather that he could fly. But I think they do have a volume of the actual heyday of the Falcon in the Epic Collection. So if I'm right about that, we'll be getting to it. But it's not this volume. Okay, no matter what I think of the guy, this volume belongs to Jim Steranko. So if you're going to make an Epic collection, you do that. You thumb your nose. You bite your thumb at your corporate overlords and say, well, if we're going to reprint these issues, then we have to put Steranko on the cover. That's the whole point of this run of the character. But they didn't. They didn't. And that happens with Epic collections. Because they are not anchored in chronology, they're at the bidding of any marketing campaign that Marvel wants to do. We'll have to hope that Michael's next choice is a little bit better along those lines. I have no idea what that choice is. If he's told me, I've forgotten. But here's hoping that it's better than this one. Okay? Because this one not only has Captain America in a weird necrophilia stage of his character development, but it also introduces in the least effective and least enjoyable version of the Falcon. So it's kind of a failure as an epic collection. So it's got very ineffective Jack Kirby artwork. Michael K. Vaughan went nuts over late panel Jack Kirby artwork, as if you can't see how sleepwalking it is. It's got ineffective John Romita Sr. artwork. It's got effective but too brief John Buscema artwork. It's got Jim Steranko doing whatever it is that he's doing that fanboys can't get enough of, and I hate it even when it first came out on the stands. And then it's got Gene Colan, but prototypical Gene Colan, long before he became any good on this book. So, your epic collection for today is a big and we'll see what next week's is. So tune in and see if Michael and I agree next week. Thank you, BookTube.